Video 0.3, Getting Organized. Last video we talked a lot about attitudes. This video is going to talk a lot about mechanics, and what I mean by that, it's an important video because tomorrow you're going to start putting into place the mechanics of how I want you to be a student. Everything that follows, do your very best to make sure that you're following these guidelines starting tomorrow. And just to warn you, there are a lot of specifics, and some of them are different from any other math class you've ever had. So I'm going to implement a learning grace period when it comes to these student procedures. If you mess up in some way on some task or incur any grading penalties for not doing the right thing, you'll be able to completely redo that task for full credit. Everyone will be able to earn 100% on the first few grades, even if they don't get it right the first time around, simply because you are still getting used to my strange systems. And I'll talk more about that during the next video, which is a grading video, but for right now, let's get organized. So first, your materials. And here are the required materials. You need to make sure you bring your computer, your charger, and something that's different from other classes, you do need to bring a set of headphones. Every once in a while, you might find yourself in a position where you actually want to watch a video, so bring your headphones. Next, pencil, eraser, and pen. Then a folder or a binder to keep papers and notes packets that you're using. So just a place to put papers. I'm not very particular about what it is. Your old papers can stay home, like the next time we go to a chapter, the next chapter, then you can put the previous chapter's notes at home. You don't have to bring them to class every day. But at the end of the year, I will grade you on producing every single piece of paper and assignment that you used in this class. All the quizzes, all the notes, all the assignments. What I want to do is I want to package them and give them to your next year's teacher so that that teacher will be able to give them back to you and you'll be able to remember the math you learned much more easily. Next, composition book. Super important. This is the best way to keep all assignments ordered and in one place. It's required. Also required for this composition book is that you have to make sure you attach the assignment list to the inside front cover of your composition book for easy reference, and the assignment list is in this packet. So you'll rip it out from the packet and attach it to your composition book. No spirals, please. No metal spirals of any kind. It makes my life difficult, and also they fall apart faster. So these are much better. They're much more durable. They'll last all year for sure if you treat them well. And some of you might as well buy 2 composition books. Most students find that they can't go through the entire year in one, they need 2. So unless you write very small, you'll probably need 2 composition books over the course of the year. Some of them are quad-ruled, meaning you open them up and they have graphing paper inside instead of just lined paper, and that's actually a little bit better. I recommend it, but it's not required. You can have just regular lined paper if you want. Now, do not use this for any other class. Don't use it for English, don't use it for Spanish. You need it to be just for my class, please, because I will be collecting them, and I won't necessarily always tell you when I'm going to be collecting them, so you need to have them in class all the time available for me. Don't rip any papers out. If you need scrap paper for anything, I've got scrap paper, you can use mine. Don't rip your papers out because it makes things fall apart much more quickly. And I'm firm on this. Everyone needs to have a composition book. So every year there are a few students who hear this policy and think, nah, I'll bet he just take my brand new awesome spiral notebook. Please purchase a composition book or 2 from my class. You will not be able to turn in your assignments any other way. Here's an actual picture of what your notes packets will look like. I gave you the first packet, and I hope that you're writing notes and filling in the blanks in that first packet. I gave that to you, but for the rest of them, I'd like you to please print them out. You have access to school printers, so print them out, and all the subsequent chapter notes are posted on my webpage, so download them, print them out as you need them. Make sure you print out our next packet for Monday. You'll be able to find them on the web. You may choose either large print or small print as you wish. This is, I believe, large print, small print. Some students, some prefer large, some prefer small. It's fine. You can choose whichever one you want. But I highly recommend that you staple them together because you don't want 20 pages floating around. You want to have them all in one place. Definitely staple them. Next, you might say, well, what about textbook? Actually, those 5 categories of things are the only things that are required for my class, because a textbook is posted as a collection of PDFs online. If you open them, sometimes you might be prompted for a password, and the password is blue. But basically, you don't need a textbook. You can just use your computer to read the PDF. Most of my students at the end of my first year at SEH were using the PDF version anyway. They didn't want to bring their textbook to class, so I'm basically saying let's use the PDF, and that's fine. If you're one of those students who does not enjoy reading their computer screen too much, or if you have a concussion, or if you're just traditional in the way that you want to read a math textbook, we have plenty, and you can sign them out. I'm just not giving them out because most people don't use them. So there will be textbooks available for you in class to use as well. Next, calculator. I'm not requiring a calculator, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, I want to tell you my philosophy on calculators. Calculators should be used to automate strengths, not as a crutch for weaknesses. If you do something for the first time, do it without a calculator. If you use a calculator, because we should be using a calculator to speed up parts of the problem that are easy and time-consuming and overall peripheral to the objective of the lesson. It should not be the new stuff that we're trying to learn that you're using a calculator for. So if you're graphing and you find yourself doing a lot of multiplication and exponents, then use a calculator to speed up those easy, time-consuming peripheral tasks, because really what we want to focus on is the graphing. Third, it's a good idea to use technology to double-check your work even after you finish it. So I always think you should have a calculator handy. Make sure that make sure you use it to check your work. Now, I might as well just say right now that I think some of the best calculators out there are websites. That's why you don't necessarily need a calculator. If you're going to check your work, use a website calculator to do it. And I have plenty to recommend if you want to know what they are. Now, you need to make sure that you follow all these guidelines, because on assessments, you are not going to have a calculator, usually, most of the time. And sometimes I change my mind on this, but most of my assessments are done without a calculator. So you need to make sure you focus on learning the new stuff and doing it without a calculator. Make sure you use a calculator to check your work and know that you're getting it right, so that when you get to the assessment and you don't have access to a calculator, you still are able to answer questions, because you've automated your strengths as opposed to using them as a crutch for your weaknesses. So let's follow these guidelines, and I'm not actually going to be policing your calculator use during book assignments, so follow these guidelines, and I'll leave it to you to make sure that you do that. They're meant to help you learn and prepare for my quizzes and projects. So that's the why. Now I want to say that there's no official calculator required for this class. We use websites often. We use Desmos, and here it is. Here's the Desmos logo, and this is what it looks like, and some other websites too. But basically, I know that you are all having to take the SATs or the ACTs, or I'm well aware of those policies. AP tests say that you can't use Desmos. That's fine. So we're going to learn first on Desmos, and then if you aren't sure how to do something on your calculator, I can show you how to do the same task over here on your calculator. It's just a much better mathematical learning experience to be using the website of our choice. Often it's Desmos. Learn how to graph parabolas and learn how to find their vertices and their lines of symmetry using Desmos. And then, if you want, I can show you how to use your calculator afterwards. Next, let's talk about the videos. So my videos are hosted on YouTube. When I produce them, I upload them to YouTube, and that's because YouTube is very stable and very reliable. And you can even find a link to the YouTube playlist on my webpage if you want. But the problem with YouTube is that it doesn't tell me who has watched my videos. It doesn't give me any data. But Edpuzzle gives me data, and I really love Edpuzzle. Let me show you what kind of data it gives me. It shows me, for example, who watches it and how much they've watched it and all that stuff. It allows me to ask math questions of you and get good data on the class's understanding of the material even before we meet as a group. So you can see people are getting graded on how well this video had one question, multiple choice question at the end, and the student got it correct. So their overall grade on this is 100%. Please follow the instructions on our class webpage to join the Edpuzzle if you haven't already. Make sure you've joined it. In fact, I hope that you're watching this video right now through Edpuzzle. If you're not, make sure you start. I recommend that you bookmark Edpuzzle for your easy access and reference. And the one gripe that I do have about edpuzzle.com is that it's not as stable and reliable as YouTube. Sometimes it's down, sometimes it doesn't work. And it works most of the time, but if it doesn't, then just send me an email alerting me to the fact that you're going to be watching the YouTube video, and go ahead and watch it on YouTube. There will be a link and you'll be able to find that. If you ever don't have access, then let me know personally. Send me an email and then just jump straight to YouTube. It's not a big deal. If you ever want to, you can also download the Edpuzzle app and watch it on your iPhone or on your mobile device. So those are videos. Now assignments. So assignments are off as what most people call homework, a term, and homework is a term that is more confusing than you might think in the flipped classroom. So just use the phrase assignment. If you try and use the word homework, what do you mean? Do you mean work out of the textbook, or do you mean the work that you do at home? Because actually in the flipped classroom, those are two different ideas. Maybe that sounds confusing to you right now. Don't worry about it. Just don't use the word homework. Use assignments. That's what we're doing out of the book. Now, these things must be done in a composition book, as I've said before. If you don't have your composition book with you, for some reason, like for example, sometimes I collect the composition books, or sometimes you forget them, then what you can do is just do the assignment on a separate piece of paper. And whenever it is that you get your composition book back, you can fold that paper in half and tape it in. Literally attach that assignment that you did on a separate piece of paper, attach it to, maybe not using a stapler or a paper clip, but use like a piece of tape and attach it in. You have to make sure you label the assignments with the assignment name, like 3A or 6C or 0C. Tomorrow in class, you're going to be doing assignment 0C. So when you do it in your composition book, make sure you have at the very top 0C. Next, I want to make sure that you know that assignments are usually started at the beginning of the class, and I design them, I write the problem list with the intention that you mostly finish them in 40 or 45 minutes. Now, if you don't finish them, that's fine, but they're your responsibility to complete before the next class. So a great use of SAS time is for finishing assignments that you didn't finish in class, and I'd love to help you with that if you want to stop by. Next, every single problem on the assignment, if I assign 20 different problems, every single problem has to have three things: question, work, and answer. So let's talk about those individually. Question. I'm asking you to copy the question. So if this is what your textbook looks like, and this is what your composition book looks like, notice you got to say what number it is, and then you have to recopy the question. Now, some of you might push back and say, why? That seems a bit unnecessary. Well, I'll give you several reasons. And the first reason is the student that most students quickly accept. They understand it, they relate to it. When you copy the question, your composition book becomes something that you can study for quizzes and exams. You can see the entire thought process from question to answer all right there, and it becomes an incredibly valuable resource for studying assessments. It helps you remember all the things that you've done. Now, you can't just study a list of answers or even a list of answers with some work. You've got to have a question in order to make sure you can use your composition book in this way to study for quizzes. But actually, that's not the real reason why I make everyone copy the question. I think it helps you better read questions. Now, maybe you've ever had that experience in a math class where you got a question on a test or quiz wrong because you didn't read it very well. Some people classify this as like a stupid or silly mistake. I think we all need to get really good at reading questions, taking them in their entirety. It's super important. And the only real effective way at getting good at reading questions is copying questions. If you've ever missed a question on assessment because you didn't read the question well, then this is how you train your brain to copy it better. It's the single most effective strategy we have for raising test-taking skills. Copy the question. So, over time, I hope in the next few months, I hope you'll see that the number of questions you get wrong because of careless reading errors gets minimized or eliminated. So, let's take a look at an example. You might say, what exactly is the question? And here you can say that I want you to copy everything that follows the question's number. So, for example, if you're doing number 11, I want you to copy all of this. If you're doing number 10, I want you to copy all of this into your composition book. If you're doing number 28, I want you to copy all of this. It's everything that follows the number. 31, all of this. Now, I want to make sure that you understand. If you're doing number 21, yes, copy the graph as you see it, everything following the number. Now, I'm not trying to kill you with too much work. I do want to say that you don't need to copy what I'm going to be calling the instructions. If there's anything before the number, you don't have to copy it. Like all this stuff here, it's valuable for you to read. You need to read it in order to do the question, but I'm not going to try and kill you with too much handwriting. It's not required in my class. However, I have had students in the past who really need to get better at reading tests, and they voluntarily go ahead and do the extra mile, and they copy the instructions. They copy this, and they've benefited from it in that they are better able to read questions. They take the questions in completely. However, it's not required. Next, word problems. You might say, Bergman, wait a minute, do we have to, Next, word problems. You might say, Bergman, wait, are you trying to tell me that we have to copy all of this down? No, it's actually not very helpful to copy down an entire word problem. Although I have had students do it before, it's just, there's a better way of doing it. And the better way is listing the knowns and the unknowns. Let me show you an example. In this example, we're talking about a surveyor. And they place the poles at points A, B, C in order to measure the distance across a pond. The distance AC, and BC are measured as shown. And they also know that there's a right angle. Find the distance AB across the pond. Here are the things that we know, and I want you to list the knowns. This is, instead of copying the question like word for word, I want you to first list the knowns. And here they are. It's a list of all the facts from the problem, and it's labeled with units. AC is 47 yards. BC is 25 yards. Units are incredibly important. Units help tell the story, because if you just say AC is 47, then you don't know if it's talking about $47, 47 seconds, 47 miles per hour. When you say 47 yards, that creates in your mind a picture. It helps tell the story, and units do that. So please write the units. Spending time, I do want to say that spending time thinking about units helps understand the problem much more deeply. It's incredibly effective at helping students. When I go and I talk to students about the units, what I find is that as soon as we identify the units, then they can tell the story, and then they get the answer correct. And if students can't tell me what the units are on their numbers, then they don't really understand the story, and they have no hope of getting the answer correct. It's an effective strategy. Focus on units. Next, I want you to make a list of unknowns. Usually there's one, if not more, unknowns. That's the thing that you are looking for that will answer the question. So here we're looking for AB, the distance AB across the pond. What I want you to do is I want you to choose a letter from the alphabet to be your unknown. Label it with units also. X is going to represent the hypotenuse length in yards. It's astonishing. So I'm just telling you, choose a letter from the alphabet. That's the big thing that people often don't do. It's astonishing how often students get stuck at this point when you think of how easy it is. Just pick a letter. And yet students forget to pick a letter, and then therefore they are unable to write an equation and solve it. With no letter, no equation. No equation, no answer. Often, if you're stuck, just picking a letter for the variable and writing it down is a big deal. It helps you write the equation. And I want to reiterate the fact here, it's impossible to write an equation to solve if you don't have a variable chosen, so pick a letter. Now, sometimes a fact or variable or equation could be on either list. That's knowns and unknowns. And sometimes they go back and forth between whether or not something is known or unknown. For example, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Is that a known or an unknown? It's the Pythagorean theorem. Some people put it as a known, some people put it as an unknown. I don't really care which one, just so long it's on a list somewhere. So, next, that's copying the question. And you've seen how to copy a question when it's just an equation, and you've seen how to copy the question when it's a word problem. Next, I want you to show work. And the work is right here. You can see plus 13, plus 4x, plus 4x, plus 13. And there's an equation here, 18 equals 5x, before we get to the answer. Work is incredibly important. And I'd like you to write down your thoughts on how to logically connect the question with the answer. Why? Why show work? It's because the more work you show, the more likely you will get the question correct. I can't stress that enough. Students often go at great lengths to try and do as much as they can in their head, and just that kind of a strategy is not going to lead you to the right answer as reliably and as predictably as if you were to show work. More likely you're going to get it correct. Showing your work helps you proofread your thoughts. So you're proofreading your own ideas when you're writing them down. You can look at them. You can't proofread what's in your head. You can only proofread what you've written down and then look over again. Showing work helps you return to your thoughts days or months later after you've completed them, so you can remember what you've done and how you did it. Again, it's the studying for the quiz or the test or the assessment. It helps you remember what you did and what you thought on that day, last week or yesterday or 2 months ago, that helped you get the problem correct. If you don't show your work, then you can't study from it. I'm going to say this about showing work. So that's why show work. It's so important. Some of the other things I want to say about showing work, is that I don't really value speed in mathematics education. I value understanding and correctness. So don't try to show minimal work to speed up the process. Besides, and I can prove this face to face, I can prove this with you in person if you want, showing more work will often speed up the process. So people who think they want to get things done more quickly should actually show more work. It's what I advise of my SAT clients that I have. Showing more work is an effective way of doing a problem faster. Of every problem must have work shown. It's incredibly important, and I will be deducting points of individual problems that don't have any work shown. So you might want to say, well, Bergman, have I shown any work? Do you have a test? Yeah, and what I do is I cover up the question and I cover up the answer. Check this out. So here's that same problem with the question covered up and the answer covered up, and anything else is what we can call work. You've got to have some work for every single question. Now, sometimes some people might argue, oh, Bergman, this is too easy to show work. How am I supposed to do that? Well, I'd say you can always draw an arrow or circle some sort of key word that was in the question that indicates how you got the answer. And I agree, sometimes some of them are easy, but I still think it's important to show work. And if you are having difficulty figuring out how to show work, then I'd love to be able to help you. So please ask me if you need help figuring out what work to show because you think there is none and you want to do it all in your head. Next, question, work, answer. You've got to indicate an answer. You can circle it, you can highlight it, you can underline, or whatever you want to do. Just make sure it's clear enough that a fellow student can read what you've done, because they will be reading your work. We do a peer editing and peer grading in my class. If the answer has units, so for example, not here, but often in the case of word problems, make sure that your units are indicated as part of the answer. Units are required for correctness. 36 bees or 36 camels is way different from 36 miles per hour or $36 or just the number 36 itself on a number line. Units are required for correctness. Next, try every problem. In the assignment, often students have this terrible, terrible habit of going as far as they can, and then as soon as they can't do a problem, they stop and they don't try anymore, and they leave it blank. And Other teachers don't penalize students very much for that, but I do. You've got to try every problem. I grade highly on completion. There's a strong emphasis on completion, and also for correctness as well on the side. But if you don't know what to do, if you're stuck, you're looking at it and you've got a complete mental blank, you can always copy the question. That helps. And you can always show some sort of work, even if the work is incorrect. You can even just, and that work can be like a question to me or a comment about what you don't understand. Like, Bergman, what is this? I've never seen this before, or I'm not sure how to use this, or whatever. Like that's work to me, and this is educationally valuable and always possible. You can always do it. So you can always try every single problem. I don't want you to leave the last problems of an assignment unattempted. You even have to try the last problems. Even if you get stuck with something midway through, try every single problem. Next, let's talk about the assignment board. This is what it looks like in my class. You've seen it already, and I wanted to talk about some of the things that you'll see on the assignment board. Each class has its own column, and so, for example, in this picture, you'll see this is class B. If you every class has a block, A, B, C, D, E, F, or G block, and this is what B block looks like. So you'll notice that each assignment has its own column, and there are 5 rows, and at the very top is the assignment to give feedback on from the day before. This is whatever assignment you'll see in this space is the one that we did before and we're finished, and now we need to process together with peer feedback. More on that tomorrow. Then notes and video to discuss from the night before, the assignment to begin in class and finish if possible, and then the next notes to take on a video tonight. Below, not pictured here, is actually going to be another row that talks about the info on your next quiz. So some comments on that. First of all, I make sure that this info is posted in 2 places. On our class web page at the time of this writing, it's Haiku Power School, although that could change, who knows. And physically on the wall of my classroom on the assignment board or in the announcement section. I really don't make any guarantee that I'm going to verbally announce these things. It's your job to check the wall and check the website. They should always be updated. And if I ever forget to post to either one of these, then as you can see here, if I ever forget to post these, and there's no late penalties, but please email me. I want to make sure that everyone is on board and understands. I'll take responsibility for my mistake, and in that way there will be no late penalties to be given. You'll have time to catch up if there's a miscommunication. And so there it is. All right, so let's talk about what's going on tomorrow. Tomorrow you're going to start assignment 0C. And basically that means you need to finish filming the trailer, you'll submit it on day 4, and then you'll also start math review 0C in your composition book. So make sure that you are finished, you have a composition book, and then you can do the math review that we're doing in the composition book, and you might want to make sure that you have everything that you need in order to finish filming your trailer tomorrow. You won't submit it tomorrow. I'll tell you how to do that tomorrow night in the video. So take care, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.